We're going to do a little video here on a application to do analog scaling for a tank level, as well as to set high, 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 low, and low, low alarms on that analog value. So the first thing we're going to do, I've got the application written here, but we'll go back to the logic here in a little bit. We're going to start out in the graphics end of things. And in this case, I've got a number of things going on, but I'm going to start out with up here in the configuration tool. Under the alarms object, this is where we set the number of alarms. So we started out with an address of T289, and the key here is these have to be word or byte aligned. So you have to be careful with what addresses you pick to what will work and what won't work. So in this case, we're going to have 4 particular alarms in this example. We have an acknowledge bit and a clear bit. This is for acknowledging alarms and clearing out the alarm history. The other thing we have the ability to do down here is set our colors. I'm going to leave all of these at default. And we added our 4 points and we went in and gave them identifying strings. So in this case, it's called low, low. If you wanted to, you could come in here and make this a tank level low, low alarm. If you hit OK, it puts that in under the list. If you wanted to do data logging from your alarming, you would click on this tab here and enable this to the data log and give it the path that it would create for your logs. We're not going to do data logging in this example. So once you've gone through and identified and tagged the names of all 4 of your alarms, I'm not going to do the other 4. We'll hit the OK button. And then let's go to logic. We'll come back to this here in a second. I'm going to close the graphics down. And so over here on the first block, I took R1 only so I could show it on my screen. Typically, this would be analog input 1. Comes in as a value of 0 to 32,000. And in this particular case, we're scaling the tank level to minus 15.0 to plus 15.0. And you notice I've got 150 on both of them. That's an implied decimal point in both cases. R100 becomes our scaled tank level. And the next 4 rungs down below here is where we do the bits for the alarming. So on this first one, we're taking the scaled tank level, and we're saying if you're less than or equal to a minus 75 or 7.5 inches, we want to go ahead and turn on the alarm bit. And then I've got another bit here that I'm using for some attributes that we'll talk about in a little while. So R250.5. So this sets my low, low alarm. The next one over here is a limits instruction. And this one is saying if you're between minus 7.4 and minus 5.0, we're going to pass power through to this T290 bit, which is the tank low alarm. And then we have another limits instruction. This time we're saying if R100, my scaled tank level, is between positive 5.0 and positive 7.4, this then energizes the bit out here for the tank high alarm. The next one down here is the boiler tank level, looking at the plus 7.5. And if it's greater than or equal to plus 7.5, we're turning on this T292 bit, which is the tank high alarm bit. And again, just keep in mind, I've got this 250.5, 6, 7, and 8 triggered on those as well. So now I'm going to go back into the graphics editor again. And if I look at my, I'm going to move the slider out of the way here for a second. If I look at my tank level, I've got that looking at register 100, which is that scaled tank level. It's still looking at the plus 150 to minus 150. But under the attributes field, you'll notice that I've got this register 250 bits 5, 6, 7, and 8. And those are going to change the colors. So it starts out as a green bar graph. And as it goes up, this is going to give me orange at a low level and red at a low level. And I believe this is high level is going to turn kind of a greenish yellow, and then at a high level, it's high level, it's going to turn yellow. So we've done that on that particular one. Now I'll drag the slider back over the top so that we can actually control this later. On my gauge here, this is also looking at boiler register 150 for the boiler tank level. It's still looking at the same plus and minus values. And in the attributes field, I have those same parameters tied to that same address. And then in the data field, for just displaying the information here, we had to make this a signed decimal. Typically the default is decimal here, but since we've got a negative number, we had to go to signed decimal, and that changed it to a minus 1.2, so 15.0 is our max that we can see there. And we'll uncheck this enable bit. And then in the attributes field, we also have that register 250 tied to those values again. So now I'm going to go ahead and close. And at this point, we could take this and download this to our application, and then we'll do some testing on that end of it to see how that works. Okay, I've got a XL4 here, and we're going to show the analog scaling and alarming on the XL4. And I've got a couple of different objects on the screen here that we can show the alarming and animation on. So I'm sitting at 50% or right in the middle of the signal right now. Everything is green on the bar graph, the needle, and the digital data. I'm going to start to bring that value down. I'm going to bring it down to about partway where it's still green. And then I'm going to bring it all the way down to a level where it's going to turn into the red, dark red color. So we now have a low alarm level that came in. And you can see that the needle and the bar graph and the digital or the numeric data field have all turned dark red. I'm going to go change that down a little bit further and put it into a low alarm, and it turned into the bright red. And you'll notice now that the numeric data field is blinking or flashing red, telling us that we're at a low alarm point. I'm going to go ahead and bring that value back up. Just bring it back up to the middle point. Everything goes back to green. No more blinking or flashing. I'm going to start to bring it up to the high level value. Let's get a high alarm. So now we've got the gold color. Everything turned gold. We can see that. And I'm going to take it up to the high alarm. It turned yellow, and it's now flashing on the numeric data field at 7.5 inches. And just for fun, we'll take this up to 32,000 or the max field. So we've maxed out. We're still on high alarm. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this back down to the middle again. And you'll notice that everything went back. So we're showing everything on that end. The other thing we've got going here is the alarm summary screen. And on that screen now you can see all of the values. So we can see the alarms. I'm going to acknowledge all, and they all went away because they've all returned to normal. If I go into the history, so all of the history of when it went into alarm, when it returned to normal, and we'll go ahead and say clear all, hit the escape button, and everything is back to normal on that end of it as well.